Today, I am going to give the first Toastmasters 101 session on how to be an evaluator. Now, evaluation is one of the most important things we do at Toastmasters. You can do speech after speech after speech after speech, and you have no idea whether you're making progress in the right direction unless someone gives you constructive feedback. And there are an infinite number of ways of doing an evaluation, and I'm not here to try and funnel everyone into doing exactly the same kind of evaluation every time. But at the same time, there are evaluations that are more helpful, and there are evaluations that are less helpful. And so we're going to go through the process from start to finish so that you can hopefully give people the most useful feedback that you can. So we start by, and I'm sorry, I have a cold, so I'm going to keep drinking tea every now and again, just so you know. We start by picking someone to evaluate. And when you start out, I would suggest that you pick someone who is roughly your level. You need to do 2 speeches and 2 roles before you can do an evaluation. And the reason for that is we want you to have been a part of seeing the evaluation process over a course of several weeks, and to have received evaluations yourself before you start giving them out. That doesn't mean that if you've done 2 speeches, you are not allowed to evaluate someone who has done 4, but it does mean maybe don't do someone who's on their 3rd advanced manual as a starting. If you're unsure, ask me and I can assign you someone who is suitable. When you've picked someone, read the manual, read the Competent Communicator manual, and find out exactly what objectives it is that they need to be evaluated on. But also ask them if there's anything specific, like Manas did, and his evaluee wanted to look at, I'm sorry, I can't remember what it was that they wanted to look at. Body language. So it's check because they might be body language, it might be that they speak too slowly or too quickly or too quietly. But ask them. And you can do that before the meeting itself. So we come on to the main meat of doing an evaluation, and that is you're listening to the speech. And there are different ways of taking notes during an evaluation. Some people take a piece of paper and they draw a line down the middle and they write things I liked on one side and things to improve on the other, and then they make notes in each column throughout the speech. I don't do that. And the reason I don't do that is because something that I really like at the beginning of a speech might be something that I find really irritating by the end of it because it's used too much or it's not used correctly. Similarly, something that I don't understand at the beginning of a speech might be a part of a build-up to something absolutely amazing. But I've already categorized it if I do this during the speech, and I've said this doesn't make any sense. So if you want to do it, try it. See if it works for you. I don't like doing it because I don't like categorizing things until I've seen everything in the context of the speech as a whole. And then what I do instead is I just write down everything. I write down notes on what I like, what I don't understand, what I react to, feelings, thoughts, everything. And then when everyone's writing on their white slips in the minute and a half, then I start categorizing these notes into things I thought were really good or things that I think needed work on. When you've done that, then you can start writing the evaluation during the break when you have sort of 10 minutes, and you can go sit somewhere by yourself and then start putting it into an order. And at Toastmasters, we use something called the sandwich technique. And basically that means you start with something positive, you then have a middle section of something that needs work on, and then you have an end section of something that's positive. But the mistake people make quite often is they think that the first section and the third section are interchangeable, and they're not. Just because they're both positives doesn't mean that they should have the same things in them. So let's go through each section so we can work out exactly what you should be writing in them. The first section should be positive things you like in the speech, but specific things. So, for example, you might say, Shayna, I loved when you ran on stage and danced the can-can at the beginning of your speech. But if I leave it there, then it's just my opinion. I could easily have said, I didn't like it when you did that. So you need to tell them what it was you liked, but then you need to follow up with why you liked it. So you say, Shayna, I loved when you ran on stage and you danced the can-can at the beginning of your speech. The reason for that is because it created a really strong opening, and that's really important because everyone remembered it and wanted to listen to your speech a bit more. Then you have the middle section, and this is where it becomes a bit controversial, because there are different kinds of things to improve on and different opinions about how you should deal with them. Because in the things to improve on, you're not simply saying what it was and why it was, but you should be giving advice on how they can improve. So you're not just telling them what was wrong, you're saying this is what you could have done better. And there are specific things that people could have done. And there are specific things that people didn't do. Specific things that people did but could have done better. So, for example, you had a PowerPoint presentation and everything was flashing and flying around and it was really, really distracting. You've given them a what and you've given them a why. That's great. I couldn't listen to your speech. But then you have to give them a how. How could I improve it? And in this case, I think everyone agrees, it's appropriate to have specific advice. So you say, what you should have done instead was have a simpler presentation with fewer slides and things just dissolving in and dissolving out. Then I could have paid more attention to what you were saying. But then we have another category of things to work on. And these are things that the speaker didn't do but should have done. And they can be quite large. They can be quite large sections. It could be vocal variety, it could be movement on stage, it could be body language. And the question then becomes, do I give specific feedback on how the person should have done in their speech? My personal opinion is not. The reason for this is because you don't have time. You do not have time to go through an entire speech that was missing vocal variety and correct every single bit of it. And you could say, well, okay, why not just pick some of the bits? Again, my personal opinion is that vocal variety, body language, these are all things that should be woven through the fabric of a speech. If you take this point of the speech, it's affected by what came before, and it will affect what came afterwards. So I don't think it's helpful to say just how to fix this one particular bit. What I think instead is a good idea is to give general advice. So say, your vocal variety was really missing. You should look at YouTube. There's some amazing videos. You should check out Olivia Schofield's speeches on YouTube. You should check out Olivia Schofield's speeches on YouTube. Because she's amazing at giving vocal variety and using body language. Or I listened to a really great TED Talk the other day. You should listen to it because he had such great body language. Vocal variety. That would be my suggestion in this. And then there are specific things. I'm sorry, I have to drink some tea. And then there are specific things that people didn't do. Maybe they missed a pause at the end of a joke, and they should have had one. Absolutely. Say you missed the pause. You should leave one next time, because then people know that they should laugh. But if someone has a problem with comic timing throughout their entire speech, I don't think you have time to do it. If you want to try it, do it. There is nothing wrong with trying it. I'm just giving you my personal opinion why I don't do it. Then we have the final section, and this is the final positive section. And the point here is to motivate the speaker. You've just told them what they need to work on. What you need to do now is to get them to go home, sign up for a new speech, come back and do a new speech whilst incorporating everything you've been talking about. A really good thing to speak about here, I think, is their journey at Toastmasters. Everybody who starts Toastmasters, we start doing competent communicator number 1, the icebreaker. That does not mean that we all start at the same point. There are some people who turn up and give absolutely astonishing icebreakers that are way above the normal, the ordinary level. Anyone who's seen Millen's icebreaker will know exactly what I mean, where you just think this is not an icebreaker, this is just someone doing an advanced speech, but it happens to be the competent communicator 1. Then we have people who stand here and are shaking and they need notes and they can't read it anyway because they're so nervous. But after 5 speeches, they have made an amazing improvement. They're still a 10th as good as this person, but they are 10 times better than they were. So mention that in the final section, because they might not see the change themselves. They might still think of themselves as being nervous and shaky. So really tell them the journey they've made. And if this person has made absolutely no process since their amazing icebreaker, I'm not talking about Millen anymore, but if this theoretical person has made no process since their icebreaker, they also need motivating to take the next step and stop sitting in their comfort zone. And so just giving them praise is no good whatsoever here. You need to give, motivation is not just giving praise and saying how amazing everything was. Okay, I'm on red, but I'm going to carry on because I've only got like a minute or 2 left, so I'm very sorry. So now you've got everything written down and you have to deliver it. So we're going to run headlong into controversy number 2, which is, to whom do I deliver my evaluation? You have 3 choices. You can either deliver it entirely to the person to whom the speaker. You can deliver it entirely to the audience, or you can do a mixture. Now, the first one really isn't an option, and I would never ever do it. It's so it's exclusionary. It's the entire audience. Personally, I like to use a mixture, and I do it like this, because I deliver the what to the person. So say, Tatiana, I really like this about your speech. And then I deliver the why to the audience, because then they get to share in your wonderful words of wisdom and understand like why what Tatiana did was something you can use in your speeches. Then the second section is much the same. Deliver the what to the person, deliver the why to the audience, and then the how to improve, I deliver more back to the person, because I want this person to really think that I've thought about this and I'm delivering it to you. This is advice for you. The third section, I really don't see how you can motivate someone entirely in the third person. If you can, then great, do it. That's completely fine. But I think if I'm saying what touched me in a speech or what an amazing journey has been made, then I think you have to deliver some of it to the person. But again, this is just my personal opinion. One thing I do is, if I'm saying saying, Tatiana, your speech really touched me, I'm going to think about it like for the rest of the evening, then deliver that out to the audience as well, because what you want to do is show the person that I believe this so much, I am willing to share it with everybody in this room. If I just wrote it on a little piece of paper and then handed it to Tatiana, it wouldn't mean so much, because I don't really have the courage of my convictions if I'm doing it on a little piece of paper. But if I say, Tatiana, your speech really moved me, I'm going to think about this for the rest of the evening, then I've given Tatiana a present, but I've asked everyone in the room to sign the card. And it's a good way of increasing how powerful it is. Okay, so you've now done it. That's the job, the difficult job over with. You now need to fill in the manual, which is really easy. You answer some questions where you give them a score 1 to 3, and you answer a few questions at the bottom. Give the manual back to them and ask them how you thought the evaluation was, because that gives you feedback on whether you're going in the right direction as an evaluator. And that is it. And I'm going to go through a couple of things that an evaluation isn't. Yeah, I'm really sorry. The timekeeper is going to destroy me at the end of this. But anyway, very briefly, what an evaluation isn't, because it's important, because we see them all the time. It is not a list of things that the person cannot or should not have to change. So their accent, their appearance or clothing. There should be nothing like that in it. It is not either a recap of everything that happened in the speech. There is nothing wrong with taking up things that happened in the speech, but do not just give a potted version of the speech in 3 minutes, because you're not telling them, and they know, they did it, like 10 minutes ago. And finally, one final thing. Do not be afraid to give honest feedback. Don't pick the things that are safe because you are scared of hurting someone's feelings. That is not why we're here. It is so incredibly rare in this world that people give us honest feedback, and people come to Toastmasters for that exact reason. Thank you.